Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Asher from the Custora marketing team and I'm excited to be here with Greg Portnoy, Manager of Strategic Partnerships at Bronto, and Jordan Elkind, Custora's Head of Products. The webinar is number 4 of 5 in our March Madness series, and today we'll be chatting about lifecycle marketing tactics to help you find and keep great customers. These webinars are part of our efforts to bring together this community of e-commerce marketers, so we'd love to hear from you during the session. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have by simply chatting it into the GoToWebinar chat window. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, and if we're not able to get to your question, then we'll follow up via email later. Greg and Jordan will present for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have some time for Q&A afterwards. We'll also be raffling off a $50 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee. Also, we'll share the deck and recording after the webinar. So now I'll pass the mic over to Jordan to kick things off.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my co-host, Greg. Really excited to be here with you guys. So let's dive right in. I would actually like to start off today by taking a negative view of the world and talking about why growth, that elusive goal for every company on the planet, is so darn difficult. And I'm going to start with one contributing factor that I think will probably resonate with a bunch of folks on the call: increased competition. Custora works with a fantastic portfolio of retail companies, and this is the threat nipping at the heels of every retailer that we work with. The increasing power of Amazon, the increasing visibility and transparency around pricing brought about by omni-channel expansion initiatives has really eroded the pricing power that retailers once had and led to an increase in the saturation and ferocity of competition within the retail space. This is kind of the death spiral, so to speak, but along with a stagnation in growth comes a stagnation in budget. When we're not able to grow as quickly as we'd like, there aren't as many dollars available for incremental marketing activities to acquire more customers and invest in the current customer relationships that we have. So flat budgets year to year only increases the difficulty of eking out those extra points of growth and hitting our comps. It's something that I imagine Greg can speak to with quite a bit of knowledge and perspective here. A lot of the retailers that Custora works with are struggling with saturation of their email calendar. They have tapped out the potential, at least from a volume perspective, of their email efforts. And there's something of an arms race going on where every year retailers are increasing the volume and frequency of communication in the email channel, hoping to get in front of that customer on one additional opportunity in order to drive purchase and engagement. But the result is a super cluttered calendar, just full of email initiatives with not a lot of extra maneuvering room to find pockets of growth. And then lastly, this goes hand in hand with every single additional challenge that we've mentioned so far: promotion fatigue. In order to hit those numbers from last year, retailers are relying more and more on discounting to drive purchases and keep engagement high. And the result is an ever-increasing reliance on promos in order to even remain at the same level as last year. We sometimes picture this as the hamster running on the wheel, where you have to run just the same place. Discounting becomes the new table stakes just to hit the numbers that you were able to achieve last year. So in case this hasn't been obvious from a quick review of the contributing factors here, it's a really challenging environment out there for retailers, with competition heating up, promotions keeping pace to help differentiate, where budgets are staying at the same level or even falling, and email are fantastic, effective marketing channel that we all turn to drive growth is filling up with lots of volume. So what is the answer in this world where growth is increasingly elusive and difficult? Well, eureka! At least our hypothesis here, and we hope to show you some concrete strategies over the coming 45 minutes for executing against this is better audiences and relevant messaging. And of course, it's something of a trite cliche amongst the marketing community today: right customer, right message, right time. So we'd actually like to kind of hone our takeaway here and focus on three core pillars of better audiences and relevant messaging. Acquisition, so acquiring better customers, customers who have more of an inherent affinity for the brand and are likely to stick around longer and drive more value to the business in the long run. Secondly, growing customer loyalty, increasing engagement and purchase frequency while a customer is active and engaged with the brand. And lastly, retaining valuable customers, intervening when customers begin to show signs of fading off of their typical behavior, recapturing them and making sure that they stay tight with the brand over the long run. Because we love cheesy graphics, I thought we'd start with one kind of motivating one here to illustrate the customer life cycle as we focus on these three key pillars of driving customer engagement and loyalty. It all starts with acquiring more high-value customers. Investing in the marketing tactics, channels, and campaigns that will bring high-value prospects in the door, those customers that we know are likely to remain engaged with the brand over the long run. Then, as customers begin to mature in their relationship with your brand, hopefully they become active, like these green stick figures here, meaning that they're increasing their level of engagement. They're interacting with you on social media, reading your emails, visiting the website, maybe even making purchases. And really the core focus of the tactics that we're going to highlight over the coming hour is on how to deepen the relationship with customers while they are active and engaged with the brand. Unfortunately, and this is inevitable in a world, especially one where competition has increased so fiercely, there does come a day in the lifespan of almost every customer when he or she begins to fade away, to lose interest or disengage. And perhaps that customer has dropped out of the category altogether. Perhaps they've defected for a competitor. But the tactics that we're going to introduce are designed to show how we can prevent customer churn. Basically, step in and save customers as they begin to show signs of slipping off of their typical engagement patterns. So with that as a sneak preview, let's dive right into the agenda. We'll begin with a couple of specific tactics focused on that core first pillar of maximizing customer lifetime value, acquisition. I'll speak about some look-alike targeting techniques and then throw it over the fence to my co-host, Mr. Greg Portnoy, to talk about list growth. Then we'll shift gears a little bit and talk about, once we've brought great customers in the door, how do we maximize the value of the relationship with the brand? Greg will talk us through segmented welcome series and cart recovery. I'll speak to some of the other tactics that we've seen being highly effective in driving customer engagement and customer cultivation. And then lastly, we'll shift gears once again and talk about tactics designed to intervene and save customers as they begin to fade off of their typical engagement patterns. So without further ado, let's begin with acquisition. And I'll talk a little bit about look-alike targeting. And I have a suspicion that this is a term and a concept that's familiar to many folks on the call today, but just so that we all have a shared vocabulary here, what we mean when we talk about look-alike targeting is building audiences of prospects or leads who resemble our current customers, and in fact, certain strategic segments of our current customer base, such as customers who have a particularly high lifetime value. Well, heck, if we could find audiences of prospects who bear a strong resemblance to our current best customers and focus our acquisition dollars on going after those folks, well, that would really help drive efficiency in our acquisition efforts. Then we would know that every dollar that we're spending on channels as diverse as social, display, and paid search, all of those dollars are going to help bring the right type of customers in the door in the first place. Also, how do we do this? The first step is to identify a seed audience, meaning that strategic segment of customers within our current customer base that we want to use to identify similar or lookalike audiences from the prospect pool. Custora customers can use Custora features such as out-of-the-box high-value segmentation or predictive future high-value segmentation to identify audiences that have a particular value to their brand and use those as seeds for building lookalike prospecting pools. So once we've built out the segment of customers that we want to model our acquisition efforts off of, the next step is to expand upon that core seed audience using the lookalike modeling tools that are increasingly available through ad technology platforms. Just to call out a couple examples of platforms that have really expanded their focus on lookalike prospecting over the past couple of years. Facebook custom audiences and Google customer match are two that Custora clients gravitate to the most and find the most success with. Facebook custom audiences essentially enables you to upload a list of users either manually or via API, and then rely on Facebook's algorithms to find a prospect pool that bears any number of resemblances to that seed audience. For example, prospects who have similar demographic attributes or share similar likes and interests to the core list that you've uploaded. Google Customer Match works very similarly, except on the paid search side, where Google AdWords customers can upload lists of Google users, and Google will automatically optimize bid strategy through enhanced CPC bidding to fight harder to win bids for those customers or customers who look very similar to them. So again, just following along with the playbook here, we've started by identifying a core cluster of high-value customers, customers that are really important to our brand. We've then ported that audience into a tool like Facebook Custom Audiences or Google Customer Match and asked them to go out into their respective prospect universes and find users who look similar to our current highest value customers. And then we press go and watch the money rain in. We invest in campaigns and acquisition initiatives against those target lookalike audiences. And the results that we've seen with Custora customers who are using the lookalike capabilities of ad technology platforms like Facebook Custom Audiences and Google Customer Match are really quite striking. One that I would like to share just by way of a quick case study here is Crocs. Household name, so I won't try to introduce their business. Probably wouldn't do a great job doing so anyway. I say this as somebody who owns probably 6 pairs of Crocs at home. But Crocs made use of Custora's predictive high-value segments and basically ported this strategic segment of users into their demand-side platform, or DSP, which is a tool for buying ad inventory programmatically, and leverage the lookalike capabilities of that DSP to invest in targeted acquisition buys against high-value lookalike audiences. And the results were really striking to the point that they sound almost not credible, but when they compared the results of their high-value lookalike acquisition efforts against demographic targeting that they were using as part of their business as usual strategy, they actually saw a 40x improvement in return on ad spend. So simply becoming more targeted and more refined in which prospects they were investing acquisition dollars against helped them drive incredible efficiencies in their ad spend, and help them bring the right type of customers in the door in the first place. Those customers that have the highest potential affinity for the Crocs brand and are likeliest to be most valuable to their business in the long term. So now that we've talked about high-value acquisition and through lookalike targeting, I'd actually like to turn it over to Greg. Greg, hi there. Can you tell us a little bit about list growth and some of the acquisition techniques that Bronto can help support?
Sure. Thanks, Jordan. So this first one is actually very straightforward. I imagine most of you are doing it, but it's something you kind of want to continuously be A/B testing on and iterating, and that's just good old-fashioned pop-ups or light boxes, depending on where you're located. Generally speaking, merchants can see at least 2.5 to 3 times increase in their list size within 12 months of using this. And these days, folks are also starting to use the banner pop-ups at the top to have folks sign up as well, or at the bottom to just kind of stick around. So definitely something you should be utilizing. Another great way to grow your list is actually on the checkout email. So, this is part of a post-purchase email series, and it's great because this is where consumers are most excited about what they just bought. So they're definitely going to open this email. They want to make sure that you got their address right and everything's going to be coming on time and correctly. So it's one of the most effective ways to acquire new and engaged contacts is actually upon the checkout, and do some tactful things where you can incentivize people from the very beginning to continue interacting with your brand. And the great thing is, because you're sending these emails anyway, it has a low implementation time. So right here we have an example of a Bronto customer, envelopes.com, who does this through a few different ways. They do it on their order confirmation page, which again is a great place because folks are engaged, and they also do it in their email. And they're offering loyalty incentives. They're offering here in this email some customer service options and as well some additional promotions. And what does this do? What this does is it accelerates time to engagement. One of the best places to begin the lifecycle marketing, and you can follow the 80-20 rule, which is for transactional messages, 20% of those messages can actually be marketing. So when people are excited again about what they just bought, they're more likely to browse other things of interest, and it's a great time to engage them. Moving forward, we're going to talk about cultivation and how you can kind of cultivate loyal customers once you've acquired them. So one of the things that we preach over and over, and we'll probably never stop preaching at Bronto because it's so successful, is having a segmented welcome series. At this point, you spend so much time and money acquiring your new subscribers to your marketing list, so why wouldn't you engage with them? And the important thing here is to not just send one welcome message, but to really have a series of 2 to 3 triggered messages that generate a positive initial experience for your new customers and subscribers. And the focus of this series is going to be introducing your brand, incentivizing and inspiring folks to shop, and reinforcing the brand value. So how you can do that, to introduce your brand, you could perhaps give them some how-tos, maybe how to choose the right dress for the occasion, how to choose the right shoe size, how to choose the right sporting goods for this particular activity, maybe introduce them to your loyalty program here. And a great thing to do as well is to introduce them to your actual cadence of messaging. Set expectations up front so you'll reduce list dropout if they feel that they're getting too many or not enough messages from you. To incentivize them, you could actually send them an incentive like Silver Jeans does here with 15% off. We want to note that it's important to test, again, because a lot of folks have realized that they're getting the same kind of interaction and conversion rates without an offer, so maybe you're leaving money on the table. So we like to always say test, test, test. Perhaps you're inspiring them and letting them know, why shop with us? What are we good at? What makes our brand unique? And then again, you're going to reinforce your brand value by showing yourself to be the expert in a particular category of product. And there's also some great inherent value to a welcome series. First off, it'll check the validity of the email address that someone gave you. And if you're getting bounces, you can immediately remove them and protect your deliverability reputation. You can also confirm an opt-in request once they've signed up, and that way folks are reminded almost immediately that, hey, you signed up and you're going to be getting messages from us. Don't mark us as spam or junk, again, protecting your deliverability. I already noted that it'll engage with them at the exact moment that they're interested in hearing from you. And welcome series have actually been proven to drive higher engagement metrics and prolong subscriber life cycles and decrease attrition, not just for the welcome series, but throughout the marketing life cycle, and thus driving a better ROI overall. And then the example for Silver Jeans is that 22% of their actual annual email revenue comes from a welcome series. So it's a brand you know driving a substantial amount of revenue just from one series. So we can't emphasize the value enough. Moving on, another great way to, oh, sorry about that.
No, no problem. Let me let me just doggy pile on the love for the welcome series because I think you and I, Greg, see the world very similarly in this regard. It's such an important, influential set of touch points early in the customer journey. I'm still kind of in shock about 22% of revenue coming from the welcome series. I mean, that's a really powerful and illustrative metric of how influential these communications can be. I just wanted to interject here with a little bit of color commentary. One of the most common questions that we get at Custora is, what is the most optimal way to segment my welcome series? I know that I should be talking to different types of customers in a way that resonates with them based on their interests, based on their engagement propensity with the brand, but there are 10 zillion ways to slice the customer base. How should I be crafting those customer journeys? And like Bronto, Custora is a very avid proponent of a test and learn methodology where we iteratively discover what the most effective ways are to shape those customer journeys. But we have some really powerful out-of-the-box tools to help set those segmented welcome series up right off the bat. For example, using predictive personas, we can identify from a customer's very first purchase what type of customer they're likely to be as they expand and grow their relationship with the brand. For example, are they likely to be more of, say, an athlete or a trendsetter for a retailer that carries multiple brands and categories? And knowing what those clusters of customers are right from the beginning of their life cycle can really help marketing teams hone in on the value proposition and ultimately the call to action that they want to emphasize for each of those customer segments post initial purchase. So anyway, I just wanted to throw in a little bit of commentary on how we've seen brands bringing this to life, but it's such a great point. I'm really happy that you have seen so much enthusiasm and success with Bronto clients as well in the welcome series front.
Yeah, definitely. So with cart recovery, this is just straight up the #1 best performing commerce marketing tactic that we've seen. Definitely the best ROI on your email sent. So it's a series of messages that remind shoppers they abandoned their cart. A lot of brands are doing it. A surprising number are actually not. It's important to personalize them based on where in the checkout flow folks have actually abandoned. Because the reason that someone might abandon on the product page could be very different than if they abandon on the payment page or on the shipping page. There's different reasons, so it's important to personalize based on where they are in the checkout flow. And also, it's important to not just throw out discounts. Again, A/B test here. A lot of folks, if someone leaves something in the cart, they'll immediately shoot off a discount, and we've seen that it's not always necessary. So it's good to randomize those. Some interesting general stats about cart recovery are that 70% of carts are abandoned, but fewer than 10% of marketers are using cart abandonment. And when we polled actual consumers, we found that 42% of them actually found cart recovery emails helpful. So good thing to be doing. And Bronto has seen with our customers a 15% conversion rate on cart recovery emails. So it's a lot of revenue there. So, and for a lot of our clients, it's accounting for between 10 and 35% of monthly email generated revenue. So it's very valuable, needless to say. And this example here is actually a Bronto client, World Kitchen. They do a great job with their cart recovery email. They have short copy, we saved something just for you, straight to the point. They have clear call to actions, return to your shopping cart or view your cart. And then they also at the bottom there have some value add. Do you need some help? This is where you can reach our customer service. By the way, in case you didn't know, we have easy returns so you can feel comfortable buying from us. And then safe shopping, of course. And what did this result in for them? They recovered 2,000 abandoned carts in the first 3 months of having this, and they got a 35x ROI on the cost of their annual subscription for that feature in Bronto. So again, very, very powerful. This one here is an example of another Bronto client, Johnny Wass. As you can see, their e-commerce marketing manager, the numbers they were getting from this message are just numbers that you dream about. 59% open rates, 40% click-through rate, and 17% conversion rates. These car recovery emails only account for about 2% of Johnny Watts' email traffic, but generate over 10% of their email revenue. So again, very powerful.
Great, thanks. So for the first two tactics here that we focused on during the cultivation phase of the customer lifecycle, these are really key inflection points in that customer journey. Right, a customer's post-purchase onboarding or welcome series, that moment when a customer abandons a cart. What we'd like to talk about next is more of the always-on segmentation and personalization that can really help move the needle in terms of deepening customer relationships and driving increased engagement with the brand. And the cheesy graphic that we have here, just continuing our example of athletes versus fashionistas from earlier when we were talking about the welcome series. Imagine if we could persist the relevance and the personalization of that welcome series throughout the entire rest of the customer's day-to-day email communications. This is something that often seems like a really elusive, crazy goal for retailers who are tasked with driving all kinds of daily email revenue, often having to do with specific product initiatives or product categories, new arrivals, markdowns. There's that sometimes contentious relationship between marketing and merch to worry about. But when retailers are able to inject elements of personalization or segmented communication into their daily email strategy, the results are often transformational. And I think, Greg, can you tell us a little bit about some success that you've seen?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. Yes, so the segmenting is great. You know, the more you can personalize, the better. Segmented emails, Bronto has seen, actually achieves 60% higher click rates. And generally, segmenting strategies have increased conversion rates by 85% for our clients. 50% of shoppers that we polled also said that they wanted their personal information used to actually coordinate a better overall shopping experience. So the example here with Hudson Shoes, Hudson Shoes actually found that segmented brand-focused emails increased their overall email revenue by 274% in 2014. And they also found that campaigns segmented by gender alone, just by gender, had 5 times the conversion rate of messages sent to the entire list. So simple segmentation strategies that you can implement can have very, very powerful results right off the bat.
That's great. And just to add some additional elaboration to the success and the necessity, really, of segmented email, the case study here is 7 for All Mankind. And what I love about this is so often the concern with segmentation is that it will lead to a huge investment, or will need a huge investment in incremental effort and resources, right, to create 5 versions of an email rather than 1. What 7 did here is really interesting. What they did was focus on key moments on the product cycle calendar, new arrivals, denim, key denim promotions, and they simply used predictive segmentation to figure out who are the most relevant people to send that message to. And what they saw was a tremendous increase in engagement and revenue over a simple business rule-based strategy or a one-size-fits-all blast this message to everybody. For example, when they sent a denim-specific message to customers who had a predictive affinity for denim products, they actually saw a 2.5x increase in revenue per recipient. So they were able to achieve absolutely the same revenue goals for the email campaign as a whole by emailing a small fraction of the customers instead of the entire customer file. And those are the types of stories around segmentation that we love to highlight, because there does seem to be often this anxiety around the resources, the effort that it will take to get a fully segmented program up and running. And that's why we often rally behind the motto of crawl, walk, run. Start with the simple things, things that require very little additional incremental effort, prove out the value, and then move to the next phase of sophistication. So whether it's starting by focusing on key moments on the product calendar, things that we're already going to support with email, or even simple segmentation like gender-based, starting somewhere and proving out the value makes it all the easier to move to the next stage, the next evolution in the segmentation journey. The last tactic that we'd like to focus on here under the cultivation phase of the customer lifecycle is focusing on VIP cultivation. This is a really essential type of initiative that retailers put in place in order to grow the lifetime value of high potential customers, customers who have a demonstrated or a predicted propensity to spend a lot with the brand and go on to be amongst the most valuable contributors to the top and the bottom line. And what we have here, there's a lot going on here, but this is essentially a brief, a creative profile off of the top 5% of customers by predicted lifetime value for a retailer that Custora works with, highlighting how much more valuable they are than the average customer. Now, the segment is predicted to repeat 185% more frequently. These are folks who are consistently engaged, always on, reading their emails, engaging on social media. And in order to maximize lifetime value, the brand needs to recognize who they are and get in front of them with experiences and communication tailored to their needs. A great example of a brand that's done an amazing job on this is the plus-size fast fashion retailer Eloquii, who uses Custora to identify who their early risers are, people who may have just made their first or second purchase, but based on everything we know about them, have a high affinity to continue engaging with the brand to drive a lot of value over the long term. Eloquii not only identifies who those customers are, they systematically reward them for their loyalty with meaningful experiences designed to deepen their engagement, things like early access to sales and events. And what they've seen is a meaningfully higher response rate and an increase in engagement, along with increased order frequency, both during the early access period as well as during the actual event period. Taking efforts to reward the loyalty of customers who are likely to stick with you in the long run and drive a lot of value for your business is something that doesn't require any sort of discounting or promotion. It's all about curating the right experiences and showing them the love. And I know I said that this was the last tactic, but I now realize that I was mistaken because we have one more to talk about, which is the post-purchase series. Greg, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So this again is something that's going to generate loyalty and increase conversions. The goal here is to really enhance the customer experience. So you need to know your brand and you need to play to your brand's strengths or weaknesses, whatever those are. So think of these messages as kind of a customer service vehicle. You want to be engaging, helpful, and speak to your customers' perceived needs, and make sure that these messages help build loyalty and kind of set you apart from your competitors. It's important to balance these messages. You definitely want to balance the benefit to the consumer versus the customer versus your company. An example would be, some thank you for shopping with us coupons, and these are some top products you might be interested in versus, hey, would you review what you just purchased and perhaps refer a friend? You can utilize purchase data for this and make these messages informational or educational. That shows real value by being helpful, and it's again a chance to kind of spread your brand voice. So a great example of this is REI. REI has utilized purchase data here to again do this kind of informational, educational message for someone that just bought a tent. So they're showing, hey, congrats on your new tent. Here's some ways to care for it. Perhaps you want to connect with our community while you're out in the wilderness using your tent. Here's some expert advice on setting up your tent and maybe a camping checklist. But then at the bottom, hey, here's some things that you might be interested in, some other items that you'll probably need while you're using your tent. And once again, here's some more value for you. Here's our guarantee, 100% satisfaction guarantee at the bottom. We also have free shipping to stores if you want to buy something else. And we have in-store gear experts. So again, it's a message that gives value to your brand, but also gives value to the customer and kind of reinforces your brand voice. Moving forward, we have transactional messages. So I touched on this earlier. With transactional messages, you can actually use 20% of that for marketing. So we have an example of Philosophy. They are really using consistent branding, and they're showing off their other products here as well on the right-hand side. And again, for some reason, if you haven't had folks sign up yet, they're also giving that option to sign up. But at the top, you're having that same consistent feel as your website. A lot of folks will put that nav bar at the top, and then they'll actually track what buttons are being pushed. So then you can use that information to further segment your customer base moving forward. And again, all you really need to highlight the right products on the right-hand side is what the person just bought, which is obviously why you're sending them the email. So again, really easy to do and kind of a quick win in terms of utilizing your transactional messages for more engagement. And then moving forward is for someone that's bought something from you before but maybe hasn't interacted with your brand for a while, the lapsed purchaser message. So this is an example from our client Not on the High Street. They're pulling the customer back to shop again, saying, tell us where we went wrong. They're offering them a discount. Maybe that's a thing that's going to get this person to come back. And if the person's not interested in that, maybe they're willing to give some feedback and take a quick survey at the bottom. And all of this is basically to say that, hey, we value you as a customer, and we noticed we haven't seen you in a while, so please come back and shop with us. Moving forward, an interesting example that we like to highlight just to kind of show something maybe off the beaten path is Brooks Running, another Bronto customer, actually did something interesting when they had a product that they were going to retire. They used past purchase data to actually launch a targeted reorder campaign to folks that had bought this particular shoe that they were going to soon stop producing. What they found, and they didn't completely expect, was that they got a 43% open rate on that message series and a 530% higher click-through rate than their average marketing message, and an actual 500% higher conversion rate. So their revenue per email was 40x higher than the average for that period. And the funny thing is they got such an overwhelming response from this message that they actually ended up, in the end, keeping the shoe in stock because they had so much great customer feedback about it. So again, shows the value of just using your customer data and really engaging with them on a personal level.
Great, thanks. So if there's one thing that you've probably been able to infer from all the talking we've done so far, it's that we as marketers invest a lot of time and energy in tactics to bring the right customers in the door and then cultivate and grow the brand relationship, which is why it's so important when a customer shows signs of fading off of his or her typical engagement patterns to get ahead of that, to predict and prevent that customer from churning in the first place. And in order to clarify this concept of churn prevention and what it means to us, at least at Custora, I'd like to walk you through a quick little infographic here. What we're looking at is two separate customer journeys, right, where the dots represent the frequency of engagement, let's say the frequency of making a purchase. And so for the customer at the top, we can see this is somebody who's typically engaging very frequently, maybe making a purchase once every 2 weeks. Well, if that customer goes 25 days, more than 3 weeks without engaging, that actually might be the beginning of a warning sign, like a red alert, that that customer has faded off of his or her typical purchase pattern and is a potential churn risk. Somebody who may have lost interest in the brand, maybe the brand did something wrong, a bad customer service experience to upset them. But that's somebody that we would want to know about and be able to take action on right at that point when it looks like they're fading off of their typical engagement pattern. In contrast, when we look at the customer journey at the bottom, this is somebody who's much more of a typical shopper, right? Perhaps engaging once every month or 2 months or so. And for that customer, going 25 days without interacting with the brand is totally par for the course. That's like nothing to worry about. We would have to wait more than 3 months in order to really be able to identify that customer as a churn risk. And the reason that we like to start with this quick comparison of different customer journeys and what it means for churn is to highlight the point that customer churn is not a one-size-fits-all problem, and it does not have a one-size-fits-all solution. Very often we work with brands who totally understandably have business rules in place that say things like, hey, if a customer goes a year without making a purchase, flag that customer as churned. But what I hope is clear from this is that in some cases, that is missing out on an opportunity to intervene in a timely way when one of your highest value, most engaged customers, actually you should be talking to them quite a bit sooner than that 1 year mark. In contrast, there are other customer segments for whom going a year is absolutely nothing to worry about. And it's potentially a bit premature and may even mean unnecessarily discounting to try and bring them back when they haven't been active for just a year. So we really want to adopt this lens of viewing customers as individuals and intervening at the right time in the individual customer journey in order to think about churn prevention and the maximization of lifetime value. At Custora, we view the churn or attrition cycle, let's say, to put a positive spin on it, not just as a binary on-off thing, like today you're active, tomorrow you're inactive, but more as a process of cooling down, losing interest in the brand or fading away. You could even identify, let's say, 4 different danger zones as a customer begins to deviate from their typical engagement patterns. At first, maybe they're lapsing. We're beginning to get a little concerned that they're not engaging at their typical cadence. Eventually, they become confirmed at risk, and if they still don't engage, ultimately they'll elevate their risk status to highly at risk, and ultimately, if they go long enough without engaging, they deviate far enough from what we would expect to see from their typical engagement behavior, we're going to have to think of them as lost, a customer who's actually attrited. The nice thing about viewing the churn cycle or churn journey, let's say, as a series of milestones rather than just a binary on-off is that we can think about the most effective marketing strategies or interventions at different stages in the journey. So a great example here from Teleflora. What you can see is a segmented set of win-back offers segmented by where the customer is along that churn journey. So for customers who are just beginning to show signs of lapsing, right, maybe they're just beginning to wander off the path of their typical engagement patterns a little bit, there's a really nice relationship-focused message with no discount, right, where the message is really about kind of thematizing the fact that it's been a while since we've heard from the customer and what can we do to bring you back. But as a customer begins to fade further and further away, Teleflora has actually seen success with an escalating offer strategy where the call to action and the discount become more urgent and more action oriented as the customer shows an increasing risk of not coming back to the site. And what they've seen from this segmented offer strategy corresponding to the different stages of a customer's churn path are really fantastic results. Revenue lift up to 25% per user, minimizing promotional dollars or discounts by only focusing on customers who really need them in order to bring them back to the brand, and then modulating the actual offer based on where the customer is in their life cycle. So, wrapping up a whole bunch of great customer lifecycle insights packed into one presentation. Key takeaways: growth is more challenging than ever. Don't think that anybody will disagree on that front. But really the solution, and hopefully this has engendered some optimism amongst the participants in the call today, is that there are ways to drive growth by finding these key opportunities or inflection points at each stage in the customer lifecycle. These include acquiring the right type of customers, making every acquisition dollar go further by using tactics like list growth and lookalike targeting, cultivating and deepening brand relationships from the moment a customer engages for the first time throughout their active life cycle, and then stepping in at the right time to protect that investment that we've made in the customer life cycle through churn prevention, prediction and prevention. One message that I hope has come across clearly from both Greg and my perspective is the importance of measurement, really measuring the impact every marketing action that's taken, especially in the email channel where it's so easy to do controlled testing and multivariate or A/B testing, and the importance of progressive segmentation. Once we see early wins, building on the success that we've seen and using that to propel the next evolution of the program. So going from simple segmentation of daily emails to more complex and predictive segmentation along the way. And then, yeah, get started. Getting the ball rolling. The first step is always the most difficult one, but hopefully this presentation has given you a sense of some of the concrete positive impact that a focus on lifecycle marketing from the very beginning until the end of the lifecycle can have on the top and the bottom line. And so without further ado, I'm going to look at a few of the questions here, and Greg, maybe I'll just pop these out loud and you and I can figure out how to best address them. Okay, how do you measure success of these programs? That's a great question. Greg, do you want to talk a little bit about how Bronto thinks about success measurement?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when it comes to success, it obviously varies for each retailer. Maybe it's just general engagement and kind of get the word out, but most of the time it really comes down to revenue. And have you increased your revenue per email for that particular series, or have you just generally increased your email series revenue? So it's usually, luckily for us, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I'll build on that by adding the Custora perspective. Custora not being an execution tool like Bronto, or actually kind of a platform that sits on top of a bunch of execution tools. And so one of the measurement techniques that we recommend, and I'll say enforce with some rigor amongst our customers, is the use of control holdout testing. So whenever we're implementing a new program, let's say we're looking to segment our daily emails, or we're looking to put incremental communications on the calendar, like a churn prevention email where none existed previously. What we'll actually do is take all of the customers who are eligible for that particular program and hold out a small percentage of those folks, let's say 10% or 15%. Those folks are really important. They give us kind of the baseline measurement of how a particular segment of customers would act if they didn't get the marketing intervention, how many purchases they would make, how they would engage with the site, and so forth. And the nice thing about that is that we can measure the true incrementality of additional marketing programs as they're rolled out. So that churn prevention program, how much incremental revenue did it drive above and beyond what those customers would have done anyway if they hadn't gotten the email in the first place. And one of the nice things about coupling the measurement techniques that Greg mentioned with something like the holdout control testing that we propose and promote at Custora is that it can lead to both tactical optimization within a particular channel, like email, what's the content that leads to the highest open rate, click-through, but also a really nice, clean focus on which types of marketing communications are doing the most to move the needle, to win back the most customers holistically across all channels. And really what's the incremental ROI on every additional marketing program that's rolled out. So great question, thank you. Changing gears a little bit here, this is an interesting one. How much is too much email for the customer? 2 to 3 times a week on average, 5 emails a week too much? I think this is a great question just to editorialize, because a lot of the tactics that we've been highlighting here are email focused. So are these all truly accretive? Do we want to layer them on top of each other? If so, you know, is somebody okay getting 20 emails a week? Greg, how would you respond to that question? How much email is too much email for the customer?
I mean, honestly, it varies is the short answer. The longer answer is it really kind of depends on what you're selling, who your customers are. We really preach the value of having a managed preferences form on your website where your customers can actually go in and say, I'd like to receive messages weekly or every day or every other week or every month, whatever it is. We really like to put the power in the customer's hand. And again, if you're not doing that, or even if you are, it's important to also, as I mentioned before, set expectations. I think the most important thing is inform them they'll be getting these messages. So they're not just getting bombarded and saying, well, this isn't what I expected or this isn't what I wanted. Generally speaking, in a series such as a welcome series or a post-purchase series or a cart recovery, the amount of messages usually around 3 or 4. But again, this is going to vary based on what you're selling. And you know, the last thing I'm going to say is that you want to have an ESP that's kind of got the options and power to remove people from different lists, so that if you're sending them a car recovery message that day, you're not also going to end up sending them your regular marketing message that day, so they don't feel like they're getting different kinds of disjointed emails. The more you can make them feel like you're actually paying attention to them one-on-one, the more likely you're going to have success with your email campaigns, and the less it becomes about the volume as it does about less about quantity, more about quality.
Couldn't agree more. And one really interesting insight that we've had from working with lots of retailers who send a widely varying volume of email, everywhere from 1 email a month to up through 10 plus emails a week, is that much like that infographic we looked at earlier, showing the 2 customer journeys, contrasting the frequency of engagement, we actually see exactly the same thing happening with email engagement, even for a particular retailer. So a retailer who sends 10 emails a week, there are some customers in the customer base who are waiting with bated breath, like anxiously waiting for that daily email, opening, clicking on every piece of content. And then other customers for whom that's frankly too much. And they're beginning to tune out. You know, sometimes we think of these as the latent unsubscribes. One of the solutions that Custora has been working with retailers to pilot around this is predictive email engagement segmentation. So essentially recognizing the fact that not all of your customers are the same, and they have different preferences and different desires for engagement with your brand, and then modulating email frequency based on those insights. So for that brand that's sending 10 emails a week, maybe they actually send some subset of their file 12 or 15 emails a week, those who are super engaged, but then they dial down the email frequency for customers who look like they're at risk of tuning out or unsubscribing. I think that Greg's point about a preference center is a really amazing one. That's obviously the gold standard to enable customers to select or opt into their own ideal email frequency. But looking at some of the data on engagement and trying to identify which customers look like they're the most engaged and which are potentially beginning to tune out a little bit, and then dialing up or dialing down the email frequency accordingly can be one way to apply segmentation principles even to the frequency of emails that you're sending out through your ESP. Okay, great. The next question is a really interesting one. How much data do you need to have meaningful conclusions? I guess I'll start by taking a whack at that. It's difficult to answer in a general sense, because what a meaningful conclusion is probably varies a lot from program to program. I'll choose just one example here because I suspect that it's a fork in the road that a lot of retailers are facing. How do I know whether the juice is worth the squeeze to start segmenting my daily emails? Should I be investing incremental resources in producing 2 creatives a day rather than 1? And how do I know what a good return is on those efforts? When we think about the quantity of data that's needed to really have a robust read on the situation, we tend to think in terms of statistical testing and analysis, right? So we want to make sure, let's say that we run a segmented email campaign just for 1 day, and we see that 2 emails perform better than 1, right? Like male-female performs better than one size fits all. We want to make sure that that wasn't just a fluke or due to chance. Perhaps it was there were some confounding factors that we haven't controlled for, like the content of the email being noticeably different and that driving different levels of engagement. So really, in order to show that say a segmented strategy is superior to a one-size-fits-all strategy, we would think about working towards statistically significant results. Now, our colleagues in the sciences would insist on a 95% confidence interval, and I think there are very few marketers on the planet who would have the interest or time or inclination to shoot for that level of certainty. But the results that we encourage our customers to look at in Custora really orient around the degree of certainty that we see. How replicable are these results likely to be day to day? And for something like the segmentation example, that's a function of how many data points we have, how big are the segments that we've been sending to, and how big is the difference that we're seeing. Like, are we seeing a huge magnitude revenue difference between the test and control, or is it pretty subtle? I realize this is kind of a hand-wavy, perhaps slightly vague explanation that doesn't give a single hard and fast rule, but ultimately I would encourage, especially when there's incremental investment of resources or money on the line, to shoot for a level of statistical rigor in testing, again, even if it's not that 95%, so that we can feel really confident that these results are likely to represent the true future state of the world over time. Okay, and then one final question, just to wrap it up here. Gosh, this is a tough one. How would you recommend getting started with programs like this? Greg, I'm going to punt that one over to you. How would you? What do you recommend to clients who are just taking the first steps towards, say a welcome series or a post-purchase series?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question, actually. I mean, I think, to your point earlier, the hardest and easiest part at the same time is just to actually get started. Start with one message for each series, welcome series, cart recovery, post-purchase, and what have you, and then just start adding one more, and then just start testing. Am I doing better on the second one or the first one? Is the second one worth sending out? Are we generating enough revenue? So it's pretty straightforward. These aren't, at least the ones that we covered today, they aren't extremely complicated. I think the most important thing is to get started, start building on your data, and then as time goes on, start iterating and then testing more and iterating. That's really kind of our philosophy on it.
So often the retailers that we work with are, well, some of the most brilliant marketers I've ever met, people who have tremendous analytical chops and imagination, and have kind of exquisitely crafted customer journeys in their mind that they're just waiting to get out into the wild. One of the challenges with that is often a little bit of analysis paralysis, right? That we let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so rather than starting with simple segmentation, we'll try to personalize across 20 different dimensions, or create 15-way multivariate tests to suss out the absolute perfect communication for every customer. One antidote to that, I guess, is to take Greg's advice. I couldn't agree more. This crawl, walk, run methodology that we've been proposing here is really designed to combat that analysis paralysis by starting with simple, easy to implement, quick wins, and then building on the success of those to mobilize the organization around progressively more complicated ventures into segmentation and personalization. Once you've got some great wins under your belt, whether it's segmenting by gender or simply introducing a post-purchase series or a churn prevention series, it becomes so much easier to know what the next step is to take and to have the resources and support to do so. So at the risk of oversimplifying what's undoubtedly a real challenge for many organizations, I'd just echo Greg's advice to start simple, find something that works, and then build on that success progressively. Keep improving, keep testing until you've really optimized each and every one of these tactics. And so thank you. On behalf of Bronto and Custora, it's been a real pleasure getting to chat with you this afternoon. We look forward, I think we'll follow up with a survey perhaps to gauge what works, where we can improve next time. But you've been a great silent conference call audience. I appreciate the questions and look forward to connecting again in the future.